We want to bring in CBS News senior national security analyst Fran Townsend, who was Homeland Security advisor for President George W. Bush. And Fran, I don't know that I'll ever have more to get to with you. So let's dive right in here. I want to begin with Iran. You saw the tweet from the president today. Another, I think it's fair to say, rather vague threat, it would appear, as you see it here. Iran is playing with fire. Also, Republican Senator John Barrasso, a member of the Foreign Relations Committee, made the case yesterday that we don't quite know what the president is intending with regard to Iran and that is a good thing. What do you make of that framing?
Look, I think the message Iran ought to be taking from Mike Flynn's statements in the press briefing room, the president's tweets, is that there's a new administration and there's going to be a new, tougher approach taken to Iranian aggression and misbehavior in the region, whether that's the Houthi shooting at Saudi ships or Iranian aggression generally and shooting off ballistic missiles. It's not going to be tolerated, and the administration is going to take a tougher line and look for what points of pressure they can apply to push Iran back and to convince them that this aggressive posture in the region and around the world is not going to be tolerated. So
what points of pressure then could they choose here? Because without specifics, you're left to read tea leaves, and when it comes to such delicate moments in foreign policy, tea leaves are never optimal.
Well, look, the president has said he's not taking the military option off the table. I wouldn't read too much into that. We could see additional sanctions proposed as early as today. And you know, the Iranians have never stopped being the world's largest state sponsor of terror. And so there is going to be pressure on the international community to react to Iranian aggressive behavior. And I think that the international community ought to expect that the Trump administration is going to lead the way in applying additional pressure, whether that's sanctions or foreign policy.
And so if you're Israel, perhaps you see this yesterday, you think, well, this is great news for us. But then the White House statement, as it regards new Israeli settlements, saying that they might not be helpful to the peace process. What do you make then of that stance, certainly in the context, the greater context of the relationships in the region?
Well, we should understand, one, that statement is a lot tamer than the Obama administration, that the settlements were an impediment to peace. This was saying it may not be helpful, and that comes on the heels of course, President Trump's meeting on the margins of the prayer breakfast with Jordanian King Abdullah, our greatest Arab ally in the region, who's under tremendous pressure taking in Syrian refugees. And I think that the president, it's sort of an acknowledgement that he's listening to our allies in the region. He understands the pressures on them. He wants to work with them. And also a signal to Prime Minister Netanyahu, while the Trump administration is going to be very supportive of Israel, settlements on a go-forward basis, we're going to have to talk about
well,
that.
Look, if there's a belief internationally that they're illegal, but also internally within Israel, they're hugely unpopular. And, you know, for a new president in Donald Trump, who was acutely aware of ratings, how much does the unfavorability within Israel of settlements, do you think, play into this stance at present? I
think we've got to understand all of these statements, the tweets, are part of a posturing to a larger foreign policy debate, whether that's in Israel or that's regards Iran or Russia. This is all about creating space in which you can negotiate these issues ultimately. I mean, I wouldn't take any of it too seriously as a hard line. I think this is all part of a grander negotiation.
Somebody pointed out yesterday that the president had talked tough about Australia, about Mexico, about Germany, some of our staunchest allies, and yet we still had not heard anything as it regarded Vladimir Putin. However, we did see Nikki Haley make some rather strong comments about Russia's encroachment into Ukraine and the Crimea. Is that some more posture? I mean, is there some time being bought here for this administration?
Sure. I mean, one, I think we can't assume that Nikki Haley went out there and made such a strong statement without that being vetted.
She did not go rogue.
Correct. Yeah. So that was part of a broader discussion inside the administration. Two, let's remember, Ukraine and Crimea are pieces of a much bigger strategic puzzle when it comes to the bilateral relationship with Russia. There's Assad, there's the fight against ISIS, there's Russian access to their Mediterranean port in Tartus. And Putin and Trump are two guys who are ruthless pragmatists when it comes to cutting deals. And so I think this was one piece in a grander strategic puzzle. To
be put together.
Absolutely.
At some time in the future. Fran Townsend, you make us better. Thanks for it.
Thanks, Josh.